The New York Swang.
Growing up on the water with fishing in their blood, Matt Arey and Bryan Thrift have spent the last 10 years competing against the biggest names in professional bass fishing. Their success has landed them ranked among the top anglers in the world. If you're looking to become a better angler, then this show has all the answers. Join us and follow along to get actionable tips, tactics, and tried and true techniques directly from the pros. Welcome to Let's Talk Fish.
Mm-hmm.
We're live.
And here we go. We are back, and it has been a month, maybe, roughly, give or take. It's been a while. Yeah. It's been a while. And we're excited to be back in the studio. We have special guest, Mr. Shane LaHue, fellow Elite Series pro. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
I always enjoy having you because I'm always trying to learn something.
It's way better than Thrift, isn't it?
Yeah. We have a special giveaway tonight. As usual, all our giveaways are special, but we really have a really sweet giveaway we put together. We've put together the ultimate smallmouth giveaway. So Shane brought a bunch of stuff. We'll talk about that in just a minute. I've got a bunch of baits, got some Titan Tunks and drop shot weights. Shane's brought some stuff from his sponsors over at Berkeley, and probably one of the most famous smallmouth baits in the country right now is what?
I think it's called a flatworm.
A flatworm.
I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
It's the Power Bait Max Scent Berkeley flatworm, and that accounted for who knows how many pounds of smallmouth over the last 2 weeks during the New York Elite Series swing. But the trivia question at the end of the show, we're going to give away everything that's in front of me right here. Over $100 value, all kinds of smallmouth goodies. Got your drop shot weights, got your drop shot hooks. It's the Berkeley Fusion hooks that Shane brought. Got all kinds of different drop shot baits. Got some treble hooks, some Fusion treble hooks if you like to throw a jerk bait or top water for those smallmouth. Throwing in some of those. But at the end of the show, we got a really cool trivia question too. So if you followed the New York swing of the Elite Series, guys, it was aired live on ESPN2, which was huge for our sport. I know when I was young, and when Shane was young, or wait, Shane is young.
I'm getting old. I got a lot of gray hair.
We always dreamed about watching fishing live, 100% live on television, and to be able to give that to the fans and to be able just to be a part of it's kind of surreal, right?
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
But we'll start off with real quick. We actually have a new item in stock over on the LTF page that I got to talk about. We've got LTF buffs now, and what better time to purchase a buff, since everyone in the country is requiring a face mask, than now. But they're over on the LTF page, very reasonably priced. What are they, $9.99, Jeff?
Something like that, yeah.
Like $9.99. Get them while they last. We've got the black ones, and this is actually like a white to gray fade. Jeff said it's to cover up the dirt that I get on my face or something, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Or you could just use it to wipe your mouth with, whatever.
That's what I do.
That's what you do. But anyway, so let's jump right.
Before you get started, we should be cross-posting to a bunch of different pages.
Correct.
So to be eligible for the giveaway,
yes,
at the end of the show, you got to be on the LTF page. That's the only comments we're looking at.
Yeah, so be sure to come into the LTF Facebook page to interact on the show. If you've got questions for Shane or myself or Mr. Jeff, be sure you're on the LTF Facebook page, also for the giveaway at the end of the show. You'll see this show cross-posted on 5 or 6 different pages, as Jeff said. Just make sure you're on the LTF page, okay?
All right, let's stop talking about the giveaway before you give the answer away.
I'm not going to give the answer away. By the way, Shane, I've done that like 3 times before. I don't know if you are aware, but I'm getting pretty good at that.
I've seen it once or twice.
But anyway, let's jump right into the New York swing, and let's start off with. And Shane and I would probably rather not talk too much about it, but we're going to anyway because you have to take the good with the bad.
Mm-hmm.
And every time we go out, doesn't matter where we go or when we go, we're always learning. And sometimes it comes down to simple decision making. Whether we made a bad decision on the water or we just lost some fish, or whatever it may be. But let's talk about the St. Lawrence River. So going into the St. Lawrence River, I'm gonna let you start because talk about because you're in the same boat as I was because we had both been there last year and it was our first trip there. And what did you expect going back this time? And obviously our expectations were super high, but what did you find in practice, and then how did you approach the tournament?
So in practice, I told myself that I wanted to fish the lake all 3 days, and looking back on it, I wish I would have. Instead, I spent
Ontario, by the way, just so
Right.
everybody knows,
Right.
Ontario was opened for us this year because they had moved the tournament from Waddington, which is the typical host city, down to Clayton, and Canadian waters were off limits, which made it fish much smaller. But in order to expand our water, they opened up Lake Ontario, the U.S. waters, and Lake Ontario to the competitors. So go ahead. I just wanted to explain that.
Yeah. So Ontario, I knew it was probably going to be one there, and there was probably going to be multiple, but I was afraid of the wind, and you can't be like that doing this because if you're not going to go, a lot of guys still are. And so I tried to find something in the river the first couple days of practice, and I was, you can still catch 20-pound bags out of the river pretty consistently. And I literally found maybe 2 places I thought I could get bit. And they were out deep. One of them was 25 to 35. And the first day, I only weighed in like 11 pounds, and I lost 4 big smallmouth. I only had 4 good bites the whole day, and I lost them all on a Ned rig, unfortunately. And
Really?
so that put me really behind the 8 ball. And after that, I said screw it, and I went to the lake the second day. And I did not realize you had to be in the bays in the lake. I was just out in the
Wasn't
middle.
that weird? Well,
Yeah.
now, you don't have to because they do get on some of those shoals and points on the main
Right.
lake, but they didn't seem to be there.
No.
I mean, the guys dominated in some of those bays. And,
Right.
and I know my roommate, Canterbury, who fished the river the first day, caught 12 pounds. I fished the river the first day, and I wasn't on anything, but I scrounged around and somehow came away with 20 pounds. But the second day showed what I was really on. And Canterbury said, I'm going to the lake. I'm going to the lake. But he actually went to one of those bays, fished shallow, and came out with 20 pounds.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to me, in hindsight, it's 2020, how many really, really big fish were shallow on Ontario.
In that lake,
In,
yeah.
in the bays and actually on the lake itself around those islands and stuff.
I think they just live shallow there, honestly. They live both, obviously, because you saw like Paul and Clark were catching them out. And
Yep.
Clark was probably the only one that was actually main lake, what you would consider main lake. Put that in quotations,
Right.
but he was on one of those long points or shoals, or like you said, something that sticks out. And he was kind of in a small, almost a bowl out in front of one, but not in the true bay. And Paul and Chris and the other guys that were in the lake smashing them, they were in actually a bay.
Yeah, and several of them now were, correct me if I'm wrong, they were at the mouth of the river, right?
Right. Yeah. They had a starting spot at the mouth of the river, and Brandon Cobb almost found that spot, so it's his fault we didn't do
Almost
good.
found. It's so funny because I'm going to blame it on my roommate too. Canterbury almost found that spot too, and he's like, I literally fished the point just on the inside of it, or on the further in the river.
Yeah.
And he said I did not even fish that area around that buoy.
Well, Cobb and I were sitting there, and we were sucking, obviously, and it was like the last day of practice. He's like, I think I'm going to go over here. Does it look good? And I was like, yeah, it looks good on the map. You need to go to it. And he looked at it, and everything looks close on the map. And
Yep.
then you ping it, and it's like 10 miles away. And he's like, I'm not running 10 miles. We got 3 hours of practice left. I'm not doing it. And come to find out, that's where everybody was smashing them. So
Yeah,
if he would just would have went, we would have found something.
And there were 4 or 5 of them, correct? I think, correct me
I
if I'm
think
wrong,
there
but
were,
there were
yeah.
4 or 5 of them sitting there in a little circle the first day, just wailing on them on
Yep.
one little spot. So, yeah, Josh White asked how deep were we fishing out there, and Shane pretty much answered. As far as the St. Lawrence is concerned, we'll get into Champlain here in a little bit, but as far as St. Lawrence is concerned, as far as the deep fish, I actually caught several of my big fish the first day in about 35 foot of water. It was a spot that I drifted and caught a couple 2-pounders in practice and got lucky and caught a couple 4.5s there on the first day of the tournament. I saw a comment, and it's kind of funny you asked, from Andrew Alexander. He said, did either one of you ever think about catching largemouth like Mosley in practice? Well, this is when it comes down to bad decisions. Doesn't matter how long you've been doing it, and I can prove that to you right now. I had a couple largemouth places. They were actually points with little flat rocks in the grass at the mouths of a couple bays. Well, guess where those were? They were at the mouths of the bays where Mosley smashed them right beside takeoff.
Yep.
Did it ever cross my mind to actually migrate back in those bays and explore it a little bit more after I found those largemouth in practice? Now, I actually pulled up in practice and caught 3 off of one point. It's like a 3-pounder and 2 2.5s. And then I pulled up on another point and I caught a 3-pounder and like a 2 1/4. And I was like, I can catch 15 pounds running these points. And it was actually with a Ned rig and catching largemouth. And those northern largemouth, for lack of a better term, they're dumb.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
they're
don't-
easy to
they
catch.
don't get messed with.
And Brock, and we'll just call it Baby Luck, I mean, Brock had they had just had a new baby while he was in New York, and every time they say someone has a baby, they just end up smashing them in the next couple of events. And he made 2 top 10s in a row. So there you go. But what Brock did was pretty impressive, and it never even crossed my mind to go in those bays. And he was throwing a chatterbait, a bladed jig, and catching them. I feel like you probably could have caught them on a lot of different things.
Yeah, I never would have picked up a chatterbait.
Right, I'd have probably been skipping a wacky worm or something.
Yeah.
And I'm sure
you
a lot
can
of
see 20 feet deep.
Yeah, and I think that's something that probably gets in our head a little bit. People, and the water at the St. Lawrence River is clear than it's like the Bahamas.
Yeah.
It's actually probably cleaner than the Bahamas. Yeah. I mean, you can literally see the bottom 25 feet deep. Yeah. 25 feet deep, you can see rocks on the bottom. And that sometimes, us southern guys, largemouth guys, when you see water like that, it kind of brainwashes you to an extent where it gets you thinking that, man, I don't feel good about skipping under that dock over there when I can see everything under my boat and everything under that dock as I pitch a bait to it, because if there's a fish there, I can see him right now. Well, you might think that, but you cannot see those fish. They can hide better than anything in the world. But for them to hit a reaction bait like Brock was throwing,
crazy,
in water that looked like that, and to come out with 20 plus pounds.
Worse than bathtub water.
Yeah, I mean, it was insane. It blew my mind. So I learned something there, hands down. And I can't believe that he was able to actually. I think he came away with third place.
Mm-hmm.
A top 3 finish on 100%.
I think he had 1 smallmouth. They said he weighed in.
Okay, so he weighed in 1 smallmouth.
I think so.
Almost 100% largemouth, which is pretty insane on the St. Lawrence River, but.
It was in my head not to even try it.
Right.
Smallmouth's going to win.
Well,
and it did, but I
was fishing those points
close.
where I caught those largemouth for smallmouth out deep, and then I was like, I'll just pull up here and just throw a Ned rig around. And I caught some largemouth. I'm like, well, I'm going to try some more. And I found one more place that had some. And I'm like, well, these are fish that have spawned, and they set up on these points, and it's perfect in the mouths of these bays. So that was the other thing I was thinking, that all these largemouth are done spawning. They're moving out. These points actually might reload. They might get better. And the exact opposite was happening. Those largemouth in all those bays just live there.
Yep.
Just like the shallow smallmouth you're talking about. They live there. Yep. And it doesn't matter what time of year. Well, I mean, you can't go there when there's ice. But if you go there from June to September, October, there's going to be shallow smallmouth, there's going to be deep smallmouth. Mm-hmm. And what I found at the St. Lawrence is they seem to be a little harder to catch this year.
Yeah, they were. Do
you agree with that?
Yeah. The place I caught them the year before, there were still fish swimming around everywhere up there. Wouldn't bite a thing. Last year there'd be wolf packs of 3 or 4, and you could pitch a bait and make a bad cast with a drop shot and with a flatworm, and they would race, beating each other in the head to get first one to get it. This year they look like a Lake Norman bedfish that'd been messed with for about 4 days in a row, 100 miles an hour the other way.
Yep.
So.
Reed Carl Finley asked what I'm throwing on my Ned rig. Actually, we're giving some of those away tonight, Reed. It is the Lunker Hunt Finesse Worm. That's actually the watermelon seed color. I was throwing a green pumpkin color up north, very similar. I would actually tip the tail. I do this a lot, smallmouth fishing. I would tip the tail with a little chartreuse or a little orange.
Green pumpkin right there.
Oh, we got a mix of green pumpkin and watermelon. Okay,
it's 4 different colors.
So 4 different colors. We got the watermelon red flake too, which is a good one of my personal favorites. But a lot of the forage up north, we're dealing with a lot of gobies. Mm-hmm. We're dealing with a lot of yellow perch. So a lot of times I'll take, if I'm throwing a green pumpkin style bait, green pumpkin colored bait, I'll tip the pinchers or the tail or something like that orange a lot of times up north, and just to imitate a perch or a crawfish. I tell you what I had at Champlain more than anything in my live well when I got done was crawfish pinchers.
Yeah, my live wells would overflow because my filters were so clogged up with crawdads.
It was crawdad. Yeah. Yep, it was crawdads.
It was coming out, the water was coming out of the top of the live well.
Now, some of the deep fish, which I was fishing deep pretty exclusively at Champlain, were spitting up a lot of, big perch, like 3 and 4 inch perch. Right. You took a different approach, and we'll get into that in just a second. But let me back up. I saw a couple questions. Oh, Joey said, nice comeback, Shane. Neither one of us had a great finish at St. Lawrence. I ended up 42nd at St. Lawrence. I don't know.
It was the worst event I've ever had.
Okay, worst event for Shane he's
ever
had.
In a professional.
Ended up in the 70s at St. Lawrence, so we just both assume go ahead and forget about that one.
And that never happened.
And roll on to Champlain. talking about Champlain, going to Champlain, I hadn't been there in several years, but always excited to go up there. It's definitely one of my top 5 favorite lakes in the country when the wind doesn't blow. Let me add that.
Yeah.
But
it's
that
pretty
was
miserable when it does.
yeah, that was an interesting tournament because and I'm going to let you start again. There's fish. I love Champlain, and it's very entertaining to watch Tournament Champlain unfold because you can literally catch fish doing a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times when we go up north, like St. Clair, for instance, or St. Lawrence, that's not necessarily the case. Usually there's 1 or 2 techniques, kind of like Florida, that dominates the event, and there's a depth range and a species and things like that really dominates, or a certain type of cover, whether it's like shoals or big boulders, whatever it may be. But at Champlain, you have a lot of diversity. You have docks, you have rocks, you have grass, you have ledges, you have individual rocks, you have flats, you have everything combined into a beautiful fishery that's chock full of 3+ pound fish. The first day, Shane came in with 15 something, right?
Terrible.
And you were in what place?
60 something.
60 something place out of 85 elite pros.
Mid 60s
with 15 pounds. So that gives you an idea of how Champlain sets up, and it's that way every time we go. One thing that surprised me is that it didn't surprise me. I thought the potential was there, but and congrats to Brandon Polinick on an awesome win, but he broke the 80-pound mark. Not by much, but he broke it. That has never, I don't think, has ever been done on Champlain. And here's my theory behind that. Champlain has the potential to break 80 pounds all the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time when you have a 4-day event, because of the weather, it either hinders guys from being able to move around, so the weights drop on that particular day, or they have a day that's canceled, so it ends up being a 3-day tournament.
Right.
We had we had phenomenal weather all 3 days of the first 3 days. We didn't make the top 10 and didn't get to fish the last day, but it was actually fairly decent. Mm-hmm. Based on the forecast, it's supposed to be horrendous, and based on the forecast, it played out pretty nice. If you got to catch that event live on ESPN2, there was some pretty awesome catches during the last day. I was able to tune into it when I was driving home, and it was a pretty impressive performance by all the top 10 guys. And I think the top 5 guys all cracked 18 or 19 plus pounds the last day, and Polinick had over 20 pounds of nothing but brown fish.
Yeah.
Talk about your practice. Talk about the adjustments you made during the tournament, because you made a heck of a comeback. You started in 60-something place after day 1 and ended up in 16th, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. And the reason I know that is because that was 1 place in front of me. I ended up 17th. So, but yeah, talk about really jump into day 1 and your plan and how you transition into really busting them over the next 2 days.
So I found one little smallmouth spot, and it wasn't deep. It was in like 10 foot on the edge of that cabbage grass.
Yep.
And the cabbage grass is kind of foreign to me, and it's probably a lot of you guys if you've never been up north. It's pretty much a stringy grass with like almost a little piece of lettuce on each side of it.
Yep.
Like it looks like a little piece of lettuce running up all the way up the cabbage grass, and it's really easy to tear through. Like, you don't worry about losing fish hardly in the stuff because
it's great for fishing.
Right,
it's
and
phenomenal
they live
for
in
fishing.
it.
Yep.
So they were eating crawdads, and I'm not 100% sure, but to me it was like a crawdad spawn. And there's boulders mixed in with that stuff in like 10 foot. I found it late, very late, the last day of practice. And I thought I could catch 17 pounds, and I ended up losing the first one, which was like a 4 or something, and then I caught my 15.5 or whatever on that. And I went and fished in Missisquoi Bay, which is a very popular bay, and I had a largemouth place, caught a ton of largemouth. I probably caught 40 fish the first day and only weighed in 15 pounds. Problem with that is that sucks on Champlain.
Yeah,
that's like catching 7 pounds on Norman.
As good as a 3-pound average sounds,
it's not.
It's bad on Champlain.
You're depressed catching 15 pounds on that lake. That's the hardest part about that lake, and that was in my head going into it. If you're on 3-pounders, you're not on anything. Like, you have to find 3.5 to 3 3/4.
So, question: do you weigh your fish in practice?
No.
Okay, and I do, and the reason is exactly what you just said.
Right.
Because you can get in an area where you catch 2 12s to 3 2s and tons of them. And if I don't know that they're not 3.5 pounders, at least some mixed in or bigger, I don't write it off necessarily. I'll still pull up there and fish because you can catch a random 4-pounder. But those smallmouth, when they start to gang up, to me, it seems like they really gang up by size.
Yeah.
And when you're catching 3 6s, 3 8s, and bigger, that's where you need to be because you know just as well as I do, 17 pounds is the magic number to do well. 18 to 20 pounds a day is the magic number to run at it. You know. So, but go ahead.
I did weigh. So on that one place, I did weigh a few because I knew they were heavier than average, and I weighed like a 410, a 4 even. So I thought, but then I caught some 2.5s, and I think that was just the nature of that cabbage grass.
And you knew the potential was there though to catch a big one.
So I thought, and I did catch the first day. I had 2 3 3/4 smallmouth, and I lost one that size or bigger right off the bat. So I had 3 good bites, but then after that, all I caught was 2.5 pounders, which is bad, real bad. It's like catching 1/6s anywhere else, you know. But then the second day, I didn't even fish that place. I was like, okay, I felt like there was fish leaving it and not staying there, and the sun helped that bite incredibly. So the second day, I ran around pretty much like an idiot, and I was doing even worse. I had 4 bass for 4 pounds at 1 o'clock. I was like, all right, you need to find something. Stay in one area and fish everything you can. So I pulled up to a row of docks. I caught like a 2.5, and I caught like a 2 3/4. So at least I had 10 pounds. Not good. Well, I got real fortunate. I saw a piece of cabbage grass fishing this row of docks, and I pitched out behind it. And as soon as
the cabbage grass was kind of on the other side of the boat.
Yeah,
on
so the
deeper
docks
side.
there were super shallow, foot deep, 1.5 feet deep, because the water was 2 foot low, I think.
It was low, yeah. By the
Super
way,
low.
the water was as low as I've ever seen it at Champlain.
And it was a harder drop off, which the first day I fished was like a gradual sloping point. This place had a real hard drop, and the cabbage grass came out to 12, and it ended. Like there wasn't just scattered crap everywhere.
It was a defined line.
It was a defined line.
Change.
Yep. So I pitched out there with a drop shot. My bait hit the bottom. I caught a 3 3/4. Well, I fished like 2 more docks, and I'm like, well, maybe that was a thing. Unfortunately, I had some mechanical issues, so I only got to fish this place about an hour.
I got a phone call from him that day.
Yes. And I fished this place
Which
for
is
about,
perfectly legal, by the way.
Yeah, fished it for about an hour, and I caught almost 19 pounds in an hour. And I decided to run in because I weighed my fishing in the tournament, and I knew that I probably had made it because I figured it was going to take 17 a day, and I had exactly 17. My scales are usually very accurate. They're usually 5 to 7 ounces light.
Thinking back on it, Shane calls me, Jeff, and he's like, hey, man, and he checked with the tournament director to make sure he could call me. He was having some mechanical issues, and he said, I just want to make sure. He asked me where I was, and I wasn't too far from him, maybe a couple miles.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I'll follow you in. Just let me know when you come by, and I'll follow you in, make sure you get in okay and everything. And I said, when are you coming? I said, because we need to get going here pretty soon, because if you break down, you know, you got to move your fish over and all that stuff. Got to have time to do that. And he said, well, man, he said, I'm going to fish another 15, 20 minutes. He said, I'm catching the hell out of them. And I said, well, just let me come to you then.
And I was. And I'm glad I stayed because I called like a
pin.
Yeah, drop me a pin.
I called
which is illegal, so I didn't do that, by the way.
I think I called like a 290 with a 310, which is like a 3-4, you know, because I have mine in hundreds and not. But then the second day I went back there, and it's incredible what that cabbage grass does in the sun. Because now I caught 14 pounds in about 5 casts. I was like, this is going to be a lot of fun. But then I kept catching 2.5s. I was like, gosh, maybe it's not as good as I thought.
And the cool thing was you were catching largemouth and smallmouth.
Largemouth and smallmouth were mixed in that stuff. And again, they were spitting up crawdads and perch. So the second day when I found it, one of the first ones I caught was a largemouth. It was about a 3.5. And it had 25 to 40 more largemouth that looked like a mushroom cloud coming out of that cabbage grass chasing them. They would eat my weight off. They would eat largemouth eating the drop shot weight off my drop shot.
Yeah, that's when you know you're around a lot
of
them.
But then the second day at about 11:30, the sun got real high and it just got stupid. I caught 40 to 60 bass, majority of them over 3 pounds. And I weighed in 20 pounds. My big one, though, I did catch on a dock on that same stretch just on the bank.
That's a fun day. I'm gonna get in. I'll get into to what I ended up doing at Champlain, but I'm going to back up. If you got questions, guys, be sure to submit them on the Let's Talk Fish Facebook page. I'm going to start addressing some of those questions now. If you got any questions about what we did up north or how we did it or what we used, let's talk about baits here in just a second because it's all part of our giveaway tonight. We have the Ultimate Smallmouth Package giveaway. We got drop shot weights from Titan Tungsten. We've got finesse baits from Lunker Hunt. We've got the Max Scent Power Worms. We've got the Berkeley Fusion hooks from one of Shane's sponsors, Berkeley over there. Got some Berkeley Fusion treble hooks. Got the drop shot hooks. Got everything that you need to go catch a big old brown fish. So we're going to do that at the end of the show. So be sure to stay on, and we'll have a cool trivia question for that giveaway. But Kenneth Chu, he said, do you think the inability to fish in the inland sea with a New York license reduces the recreational fishing pressure? On the rest of Champlain, you can fish with a New York or Vermont license. So, yeah, it's weird. Champlain is one of those weird lakes in the fact that, and I can't even answer why this is, those licenses reciprocate in certain areas, but they don't in others.
Yeah, it's weird.
So, I can't explain that. I don't know why. Kenneth, if you know the answer to that, let us know. But I do think that could have a positive influence on fishing pressure because a lot of people don't want to buy two licenses, especially when you're spending $40, $50, $60 for a license. And Champlain's got so much fishable water, and there are fish that live in many, many places on Champlain. You don't specifically have to always run to a certain area of the lake to catch them. Now, what I found during my practice, I actually went up north the first day on the New York side, up in some of the areas where Fider and some of those guys caught some smallmouth on the last day. And what I found was I was able to catch a lot of fish, but what I found was the majority of those fish to me were thin. They were long and skinny.
Yeah, that's
I weighed quite a few of them. I did have one 4-pounder. Should have been a 5. I mean, it was just skinny, but it was a 4-pounder. And I weighed a bunch of other ones that were like 3 1s, 3 2s. Ended up with about 16.5 pounds, and that's the first day of practice. And I said, you know what? I said I got to try to find some fat fish. I got to try to find some fish that are further along. So the second day of practice, I went inside the Auburn Pass, and I cut over into the inland sea, and I started fishing out deep. And every fish that I caught, I didn't catch a lot, but every fish that I caught was about to explode. And I said, all those fish were 4 to 6 ounces heavier than everything I was catching up north. I said, you'd be crazy. When ounces is such a big player at Champlain, you're crazy not to fish in an area where the fish have actually already put on their fall weight or their summer weight or whatever you want to call it, but their post-spawn weight, let's put it that way. Those fish, you got to keep in mind, most of those fish aren't done spawning until the end of June. I'd say there's still smallmouth probably spawning around July 4th occasionally. Not a lot, but a lot of them are usually done by the end of June. And so it may take them a few weeks, and I feel like those fish up north on the big flat, up towards Windmill and Rouse's in that area, were just further behind. They just haven't really put on a lot of weight yet. And I decided I designated my entire tournament to, if you watch the final day of the Bassmaster Elite Series at Champlain when Polinick won, my whole tournament was exactly basically what he was doing. I was drop shotting out deep, 23 to 35 foot of water, and video game fishing a lot, dropping down to them and catching them. I was using a 1/2 ounce Titan Tungsten drop shot weight. And what was interesting to me is when I could bounce around these deep humps and points and shoals and things like that. You'd see a fish on your graph, you'd see a group of fish, and they'd be over 40 foot of water as it's coming up on the side of these humps, and they'd be 25 feet deep. And what was cool is you could drop a 1/2 ounce weight drop shot down into that school, and it would never hit the bottom. It would never even make it through the school. If the school was 20 foot deep, if there was a school now, the school was 20 foot deep. As soon as that son of a gun went flying by their face, one of them would suck it in. And it blows my mind how fast they are. But because you know how fast a 1/2 ounce drop shot weight falls. And
Fast.
they would suck that bait in, and then it was game on. And those fish are some of the meanest, hardest fighting fish in the world. They like to be acrobats. The first thing they like to do when you hook them is they like to jump about 30 feet out of the water.
They come straight up, don't
As
they?
many times as they can. Canterbury actually had one. He told me that he hooked it deep on a drop shot, and it was coming up like super fast, and he's winding as fast as he can. All of a sudden, he hears on the bottom of his boat. The sucker jumped and missed the air and hit his boat instead of the air. And he said he's afraid the fish knocked himself out, but it didn't take him but a second. He was peeling drag back down to the bottom again. But yeah, so Champlain was a pretty awesome event. Both of us ended up coming away with good finishes. Shane had a really interesting last day when he was able to just go out there and just catch the fool out of them. They wanted to know, Clyde Baldwin wants to know the setup for the drop shot and Ned rigs. Shane I know you were flipping a jig a lot the last day, so you were more power fishing. The drop shot setup for me and the Ned rig setup, I use the same rod. It's actually a Lew's Custom Pro 7-foot 2-inch medium action. I'm using the Custom Pro Speed Spin reel, 10-pound P-line braid with an 8-pound P-line fluorocarbon leader, and that was my go-to setup for my Ned rigs and my drop shots. I like the 7.2. A lot of people use 6'10", 6'9", 6'11 drop shot rods, and those are fine for me. I'm a taller guy when I'm in close quarters pitching a drop shot around a dock or something like that. But when I'm out there fishing deep vertically, brush or suspended fish or smallmouth down there on big old boulders or whatever it is, I like a longer rod just simply for leverage. When I go to pull up on the fish, I seem to be able to control them a little bit better. That's why I like that 7-foot 2-inch rod. But that was my setup for the drop shot and the Ned rig on both the events that we just fished up north. But you did do that a little bit. You want to talk about your setups for that?
Same exact line size. So it was 10-pound X5 Berkeley braid to 8-pound 100% fluorocarbon leader.
Some of those guys go to 6, and I just ain't gonna do it.
No, and I was fishing in that grass. So actually, it's the third day. I figured there were so many in there, and they didn't really care. I went to 10-pound fluorocarbon just because I could put a little more pressure on them.
I don't blame you if you can get away with it.
The largemouth were really easy to land. The smallmouth obviously were not. They were pretty mean, but I went to 10-pound that third day because I was fishing a little shallower, and you were, like I said, 7 to 10 foot of water, or 12 foot of water, and then. I was using a 4-inch Max Scent General.
That's in our giveaway, by the way, tonight.
Right.
We got some
with
of those too.
a 1/0 drop shot hook, Berkeley Fusion drop shot hook. So, and Ned rig, same thing, 10-pound braid to 8-pound fluorocarbon. When we were at St. Lawrence, I didn't throw a Ned rig at Champlain at all. I didn't practice a little bit, but nothing during the tournament, and it was about 50-50 for me that third day. When I would go down through with a jig, and I felt like they'd seen it, I could come back down it with a drop shot and catch a few more fish.
Yeah, so that's a good tip, y'all. One thing I see a mistake a lot of people make is they get in an area that has a lot of fish, and this is sometimes something that'll separate an experienced angler from an inexperienced angler. Is you get confidence in a bait, you find fish in practice, you go through the area with that bait and you don't get bit, or you catch one or two. Make sure you have the arsenal and the versatility to, if you know those fish are there in that area, to go back through that area with a different technique and pick up some more fish. The same as fishing a big school of fish that's offshore. Be able to offer them a lot of different things, a lot of different techniques, a lot of different lures, a lot of different presentations in order to trigger one more bite. That's the key, is to be able to know how to really milk and maximize your areas. And that's what Shane's talking about. He goes down there through there power fishing with a jig. He goes back through it with a drop shot and is able to pick up quite a few more fish, and probably some really key fish that help you too. Yeah. So the light braid, Martine Jones wants to know about the light braid. Basically for sensitivity. One thing that I look at when I'm putting braid as my backing on my spinning reels and tying leaders to it is if I'm using 10 and 12 pound fluorocarbon leaders, I'll go up to 15-pound braid, sometimes even 20-pound braid, because when you go to use that knot, and somebody asked a minute ago, let me address this while we're at it. Daniel Jones wants to know what knot you use to join your braid to the fluoro. I use the uni knot. Is that what you use?
I use the FG.
The FG. Okay, so we're different. Thrift uses the double uni knot. Shane actually uses the FG knot. If you got questions about how to tie those, all you gotta do is YouTube it. There's like
That's how I learned.
50,000 videos on YouTube about tying those knots. So the FG knot for Shane, the double uni for me. But back to Martine's question about the light braid. The biggest thing to me is when you go to tie those leaders, fluorocarbon to braid leaders, you want those diameters to be as close as you can get them, okay? You don't want to take a 50-pound braid and tie a 6-pound fluorocarbon leader to it. And the reason is because when you go to cinch that knot down, especially with a double uni or probably even an FG, that if those diameters are extremely different, then it creates a lot more inconsistencies and friction in that knot, and you're more likely to break it off. Or you're more likely just to have some imperfections in the knot, which in long term will cause some really big problems. 10-pound braid, castability, sensitivity, and diameter. That's the three reasons that I go to 10-pound braid when I'm using 6 and 8-pound leaders on my fluorocarbon leaders. I will go to 15 if I'm using 10 10-pound leaders or maybe even 12-pound leaders. You got anything to add to that, Shane?
No,
as
I'm
far
the
as
same way.
light
No.
braid, I mean, is the advantages? Did I leave anything out as far as the advantages?
Castability also.
Yeah,
10 with 10 is-
castability.
10 to 15 is a lot better than 20 to 30.
Yeah, it handles a lot better, especially on a spinning rod. Derek Westfall got a question. I'll shoot this one over to you, Shane. I'll see how you answer it, and then I'll come back and answer it also. How do you guys feel about going back to Guntersville? Would you rather bass pick a different lake, or looking forward to fishing it in the fall?
Well, obviously we've had a lot of disparities in the fishing world this year because of the COVID. So, and I mean, we're bass fishermen. We catch bass for a living, so I'm happy to go anywhere. And that, the virus obviously has affected a lot more people than just us bass fishing. So I try not to be too hurt about where we go and stuff like that. And the guy that's had to schedule our events, so it's typically one guy that picks these events. He has had a lot on his plate this year.
A lot.
And he has done the best with what he's got. Now, Guntersville is going to be tough because there is also the Spro Frog event going on that week.
Yeah, that's going to make it interesting.
So there's going to be a ton of boats, but as fishermen, there's only 80-something of us. We all have to deal with that scenario. Not one of us doesn't have to deal with that scenario, so we're all going to be fighting over local spots and boats and things like that, and it's a level playing field no matter how you put it.
The guy who wins any of our fall events is going to earn it. And
Right.
I'm not talking about St. Clair necessarily the next one, which is going to be a smallmouth smash fest.
Right.
It will be an awesome event.
The rest of the
Lots
year is going to be tough.
The rest of the year is going to be grinders. The one thing about those events is everybody obviously enjoys watching tournaments, especially our last few that have been broadcast live on ESPN2. And they've all been smash fests. I mean,
Yes.
just tons of giant fish caught, 4 to 6 pounders left and right. Every time you turn your head, somebody's got another 4-pounder. And those are fun to watch. But from an educational standpoint, and to learn and to watch a guy at his best, when you throw in some of these southern places, these southern reservoirs, these southern lakes, river systems that we're going to this fall, that time of year is one of the toughest times of year to fish, and really one of the toughest times of year to try to unlock a winning pattern on a lake like that. What you're going to see is a lot more diversity. You're going to see a lot more junk fishing. You're going to see a lot of guys make a lot more decisions throughout a tournament day than you would if we were down on Lake Okeechobee in March or something like that, or St. Lawrence River, where it's more predictable on what's going to happen and how the guys are going to be fishing. This fall is going to be one of the most entertaining, in my eyes, tournament series to watch because of the lakes and what we're going to have to do to actually try to trigger a bite. And to me, that's when you can really learn the most.
Right.
Is watching a guy when the wheels are starting to come off and how it plays out throughout the day, how he makes those adjustments in order to get another bite or two. There's going to be so many different types of techniques
Yep.
that could potentially catch a key fish in Guntersville, Santee Cooper, Chickamauga,
Even Fork.
and Lake Fork
Right.
in November. All those tournaments, and it's because of the time of the year, obviously, but all those tournaments are going to be very interesting to watch for a lot of different reasons. All right, several questions. Let me get back. Let me go back because we try to get everybody's questions. Todd Tongel, what's up, Todd? He had a great question. And this can vary a little bit. I don't think there's a direct answer, but how many setups do you cycle through on a good spot, on a good area?
It just depends. Like you said, those fish that I was catching at Champlain, for instance. Now this is just one instance. There's grass where I was fishing, so you're kind of limited to what you can throw.
Grass narrows it down a little bit.
Right. I couldn't throw a crankbait. Now I did cycle through like a topwater. I threw a Berkeley Jaywalker, some over the top of that grass, and I had some blow-ups on that stuff, but they would not come up and eat that bait real well, and I'm not sure why. In the morning, I saw some school on perch, and some of them were 4-pounders, and I would throw over there, and they'd blow up on my bait and not eat it. And I think those fish could see visually so well in that area that they wouldn't eat that bait. They would hit it or knock it, or they would piss them off.
The guys were talking on live about when a smallmouth comes up to hit a topwater bait, especially when they're coming out of deep water. Davey Height and Zona were talking about this. That they're more apt to miss it because they're coming so fast and so hard. It's not because they don't want to eat it. It's just because they come at it because they want to beat the other ones to it, and they want to make sure they kill it.
They're trying to kill it, not eat it.
That's right. They want to wound it, and when they wound it,
a lot of them eat it. I mean, don't eat it. They hit it with their mouth closed, hit it with the side of their head. I mean, they don't. Yeah. They miss a lot, but. So I think that's why the jig and the drop shot were better for me, because I could pitch it in that grass. And I was using a heavier jig. I was using a ER Lures 9/16 ounce jig, which is a local company here. And if I could get my jig in front of one or my drop shot, I was actually using a 1/4 ounce weight, and I was only flipping it sometimes in 7 feet of water. So that thing's falling like a rock to the bottom. But if it fell in front of one, he was going to suck it in, just like you were doing with the 1/2 ounce out deep.
Yep.
Same scenario. So I was really only rotating like 3 or 4 baits maybe. But now if you're on a deep school, let's say you've thrown a crankbait. I mean, you can crank, you can swim
there might
bait.
be a dozen setups.
Yeah, you can drop shot, you can nail weight, and you're trying to do something different than the next guy, especially if you're fishing a community hole. Any way you can get a bite that's different from something else somebody's throwing. Like when I go to the Tennessee River and stuff like that, I throw a nail weight a lot with 6-pound line. Mm-hmm. That's just something I do to get bites. And you can get a reaction bite most of the time if you're the first person up on the school. You can throw a crankbait, and that's a lot of times how you catch a bigger fish, or a big swim bait, stuff like that. But that just depends. That's very scenario specific. Like you said, grass kind of limits that. You can flip. I was pitching a 3/4 ounce weight some with just a Berkeley Fusion 4/0 hook and a creature hog, and I got some bites doing that. So. But the drop shot and the jig, just for me, I was more comfortable with that, and I got a ton of bites on that drop shot, and the size really didn't seem to fall off. Typically, you think drop shot, well, you're not going to catch that. I was catching 4.5, 5-pound largemouth on a 4-inch max scent general. That's not a very big bait, but I think it was just the reaction. It fell right in front of them, and they would eat it.
Yeah, you can catch big fish on small baits. Don't ever let anybody tell you can't. Yep. But to answer your question, Todd, on average, and let's just talk locally here, because Todd's a local guy. You go out here to Moss Lake, and I'm going to fish a brush pile, a deep brush pile. There's a bunch of spotted bass, largemouth, and moss. On average, about a half a dozen typically before I'll make a move. About a half a dozen setups. Like Shane said, if you're on a big ledge lake somewhere, Kentucky Lake or Pickwick, and you're on a big school, it might be as many as 10 to 12 setups. This depends on exactly what you're fishing, but shallow fishing's a little different. If you go down the bank with typically those shallow fish are either going to eat really fast or they're not going to eat at all. I use a follow-up bait for topwater fishing a lot of times. It's usually just a little lunker hunt, lunker stick, wacky rigged. But if I go down a bank with a topwater, and if I go back through it, it's usually with a wacky worm or something like a finesse jig or something like that. But usually shallow fishing, it's 1 or 2 or 3 setups tops, because you're fishing for more isolated fish, not giant schools, and typically those fish are either gonna jump all over it or they're not. So, Luke Helm said, "Do you find that one color of braid is better than another?" I like the high vis yellow in the P-line, the TCB braid that I use, especially for my spinning reel setups. I use the high vis for my flipping stuff. I use like a moss green color, and I wouldn't say one color is better than another. When I'm flipping and stuff now, I'm not going to use a high vis yellow because I don't want it to be visible to the fish. But on the spinning reel setups, the reason I use the high vis is because, especially wacky worming and things like that, I'm a line watcher, and you can see that line jump or twitch or whatever it is when you get a bite a lot of times. This is with a fluorocarbon leader, obviously, but I'm watching that line a lot of times, and with that high vis yellow on the spinning reel setups, you can see it a lot better. Are you similar?
I just use green
all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
So you don't use.
I keep it
vis.
simple.
Got you. And really the high vis only comes more into play when you're throwing that wacky worm or skipping docks.
And I probably should try that. The white or yellow, or I know a lot of guys use that.
One tournament that stands out in my mind is a couple years ago at Smith Lake, and I did well. I had kind of a 1-2 deal going, but I was fishing shallow with the Lunker hunt fetch swim bait and the wacky worm. But I was fishing a nail weight on docks, on deep docks too. And when I'd skip that wacky worm, that nail weighted worm in there. It was a 32nd ounce weight, tungsten nail weight. And, as that thing was falling over 40 foot of water, I could really watch that braid and know whether it would stop or it twitch or it pop or it take off faster or whatever it is, so I can know when I got that bite. And not to say they would spit it out, but just in case, it helps to know when.
And you got hook.
That's right, yeah. It helps when you know they picked that bait up, especially when it gets 10 foot down over 40 foot of water. Yeah. All right, so let's shallow resident fish. I guess that's a question, Sammy. Yeah, a lot of those. When we say a shallow resident fish, there's fish in a lot of our lakes around here, especially in the south, that kind of live shallow all summer, and they never go deep. They stay up shallow. They feed on bluegill, crawfish, frogs, whatever they can get their mouth around, and those are the resident fish we're talking about. They don't replenish. It's not a great idea in a tournament situation to go run a shallow bank and catch 2 4-pounders and then run that same bank the next 2 days in a 3-day tournament.
Yeah.
Now, it can happen if you've got bluegill beds and things like that, but that's a little bit different scenario. But when you're talking about resident shallow fish, those are fish that stay shallow all summer long. And we have quite a few of those in the south. Let's see. Tyler Calloway said, would both of y'all agree, and I've talked about this a little bit on the show, so I'll let Shane talk about it, that the move to Bass was the best decision in your career? Bass is killing it right now with the ESPN coverage and the way these last few tournaments have went. So you want to talk about your move to Bass and kind of how you feel about it at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with it. I obviously had nothing bad to say about FLW when we were there. It was a great organization, but I think Bass is moving in the correct direction with all the social media outlet stuff and definitely the television. I mean, that's how people watch us do what we do, and we know that without fans and stuff like that, we don't really have a sport. So we have a
correct.
Some throw together tournaments, and it's for fun. It's not a living anymore. So definitely with ESPN and all that stuff. And I hope that continues moving forward. I hope we stay on ESPN for quite a while. Yeah, I know.
Yep.
And but the Bass Live, even, I mean, there's probably still more people that watch live on the internet because more people have access to the internet than they do ESPN.
Right.
So live has made bass fishing over the last few years.
Definitely. But what I think ESPN too has been able to do is probably expose our sport to people that have never seen it before, didn't know it was a professional sport, or have fished a little bit here and there throughout their life and said, wow, it was kind of an eye-opener for a lot of people, and it grows our sport, and that's what this is about, is growing the sport that we love so much and making more people around the world aware of what we do and how we do it. And that's a big deal. That's a big deal. I mean, that's something that I dreamed about when I was a kid, of being able to watch fishing live. I mean, that's just cool, and I hope everybody's been able to access, whether it was Bassmaster.com or
I
the
do every day. I like to learn what I did wrong.
Yeah, I watch.
Where did
live.
I mess up?
I always want to know how I got beat.
Yep, me too.
And I watched and listened to live. I drove straight through Sunday all day, 14 hours from Lake Champlain. Drove all the way to Shelby. And half the day obviously was spent watching and listening to Bass Live, and that was cool. That was a lot of fun. Let's talk about Tom Skidmore had a question real quick. I mentioned this a minute ago about the follow-up baits for topwater fishing. He wants to know what our guys' favorite topwater baits and follow-up bait. Matt just said what mine is a wacky rig lunker hunt lunker stick. Caught a ton of fish following up behind a missed topwater blow up. And what's yours, Shane, as far as follow-up baits?
Same scenario. I mean, a 5-inch, general or some kind of stick bait. You don't have to, you can play around with that. And but that's definitely my favorite follow-up. Either that or just a shaky head, like a 1/8 ounce or a 16th ounce shaky head, something that falls real slow and a little different.
Yep, that's a good point, because I've ran into scenarios before to where I've seen shallow cruising fish, and wacky worm's kind of my go-to if they don't bite a topwater. But I have also seen scenarios where an 1/8 ounce shaky head with a 4-inch finesse worm on it will catch way more fish than that wacky worm will.
I think it just falls quicker in front of them, and they don't have a chance to think about it.
Yep, it's more of a reaction type deal. So a shaky head's that's a good point, and always keep one of those on your deck as a follow-up bait, especially in the summertime. Jason Johnson, Brian Clary said Bass is better than NASCAR. I like it. I'm going to have to agree with you, Brian. I grew up a NASCAR fan, but lately I've become more of a,
I'm not sure what
more of a Bass
better
fan
than NASCAR.
Right now.
At the moment it's they've had their struggles, as everybody has. It's been a tough year for everybody. So Jason Johnson, what's up, Jason? Big spotted bass hammer down there on Lanier, good buddy of ours. Thrift follow-up bait?
I couldn't imagine.
Gee, yeah, I wonder. he said Bass Live on ESPN has changed the game. So many people in restaurants at lunch with no other sports on are exposed to bass fishing. It was so dang cool, and that's a great point, Jason, and that's what we were trying to talk about a little bit. Is that it's really having a positive impact on people that have not been exposed to our sport, and I think this is good for the sport. It's good for the pros. It's good for the sponsors. It's good for the industry as a whole. So, and in a time like this, it's a positive in amongst so many negatives. So, but hey, things are changing. I think we're coming around. We're going to be here. 2021 will be here before we know it, and I think it's going to be better. It has to be better than 2020.
Bruce, thanks, man. He says I really make the show.
I agree with Bruce 100%. Every time I come on here, I just listen to Jeff.
The amount of information that I've been able to give tonight on
Incredible.
my New York swing is just, it's been really fun
You
this year.
you probably would have crushed him. Jeff.
Yeah.
Me and Matt would have probably been a couple places lower. 'cause of you.
Probably.
I don't know.
Probably.
I've never been up there. Maybe I'll go.
Kenneth Chu said he likes to drop shot wacky rig 4-inch max scent in general. I actually caught quite a few fish last year at St. Clair on a maybe I shouldn't say this yet, but on a drop shot wacky rig, a wacky rig on a drop shot. One thing I tried those fish at Champlain to me on day 2, I was having trouble getting some of them to bite, and I could see them and I'd follow my bait up and down, and I had tried a lot of different things. I'd gone to the Ned rig, and for some reason they bit the Ned rig a lot better at St. Lawrence than they would at Champlain. I don't know if that's because of what they were keyed in on. Maybe it was more of just the perch deal, and they wanted something off the bottom. Yeah. But there again, they were spitting up 10,000 crawfish pinchers in the boat.
I think they just eat everything.
It didn't make much sense. But yeah, we as far as the wacky rig, that's something that I tried at Champlain, and they wouldn't touch it. Why, I don't know, but they just wouldn't touch it. So. But yeah, that's it goes back to having a lot of different things to offer, a lot of different options. But again, we have the ultimate smallmouth package. I promise you, if you're a smallmouth fisherman, you'll be able to catch some with the baits that we're giving away
you can
tonight.
Catch spots on them though too.
Spotted bass too. I mean, largemouth. We talked about catching largemouth on a Ned rig earlier, and everything's a sucker for a Ned rig, but
right.
And a drop shot. I mean, I've caught every species on a drop shot, even pike and walleye.
Yeah,
and
I
all
did
kinds
catch a few
of
of
stuff.
those this week.
We ate pretty good.
We did too. I caught a big walleye.
Yeah,
at
so
each event. And
St. Lawrence and Champlain, myself, Canterbury, Shane, Cobb, we all stumbled across a few walleye here and there, and when we did, they would take a trip back to the room with us and feed us for the week. So and some big ones too.
Yeah.
Like St. Lawrence, we caught some 7 and 8 pounders, and Chris Johnson actually caught a 9. It was right at 10 pounds. Do you see that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was right at 10 pounds, which was an absolute giant.
Bruce caught my thing. I told my buddy I would say me and Matt on the show, and he caught it.
Oh, did you say it?
Yeah.
I missed it. I can't believe. I'm usually pretty good at catching those.
Catch it either.
I told one of my buddies, I said, I'll slide a me and Matt in there.
Now wait
quick.
a minute. I'm so used to hearing it. So
Yeah,
my
true.
defense is
It
that
didn't sound the same though.
yeah, me and Matt.
Me and Matt.
And
I can't
Thrift,
say it as good as he can though.
If nobody knows, Thrift is actually at the coast chasing
He said he might not come back.
marlin, and he may not come back. He
No more bass fishing
sent
for
me
him?
a picture of a big old swordfish that he caught, and I said, if you come back and you don't bring any swordfish steaks, you are going to go back out there until you do. But he said they had like 50 pounds of swordfish steaks, and if he doesn't go from there, I got faith in him. If he doesn't go from directly from the Marlin tournament to Sandusky Bay, and he ends up coming back to Shelby, not only are we going to have a show to follow up to talk about his bill fishing excursion, but we're going to eat good because he's going to bring some swordfish back for us.
If you're lucky.
If we're lucky, yeah. No, he said they had a bunch. He promised now that if he came back to Shelby after that tournament, that billfish tournament, that he would be towing some swordfish steaks with him. Guys, again, if you're just tuning in or just joining us, we got Elite Series Pro, fellow Elite Series Pro Shane LaHue in the house. We've been talking about our tournaments up north. A lot of fun, a lot of fish caught, a lot of big fish caught. And I know we're about to run out of time. What are we looking at, Jeff?
7:55.
7:55. So we got about 5 minutes, but we got a trivia question giveaway. Again, I'm going to say this again. I say it at the beginning of the show, but guys, if you're watching on another page, because this show is cross-posted to a lot of different pages.
Cross-posted or not. I'm not sure. It could have been. It may not be.
If you are watching on another page, be sure, at least to be eligible for this giveaway tonight, to come over to the Let's Talk Fish Facebook page so we can see your answer on the feed for the trivia question. LTF buffs are in stock now on letstalkfish.com. $9.99 a pop. Got some pretty sweet colors. Talked about that earlier. I might be
did?
sporting one at the next event. Where's our next
We
event?
might be sporting one night
Second.
at dinner.
Yeah, we might be sporting these at dinner tonight. That's right.
Actually, I will be. I forgot my mask at home. So
We got plenty.
okay.
Oh yeah, well, I think
I'll have to break
we're
out the
buff
credit
poor
card
in here right now. So yeah, no, you're good. Yeah, you're good. Bryant Clary said, "Where is everyone tonight?" Yeah, we only had about 150 viewers tonight, so
Yeah, it's not cross-posted.
we're
I'm sorry.
gonna blame it on Jeff. This is not
Well,
cross-posted.
It was the best.
Well, there was a delay in the camera,
Warzone.
so I restarted.
Oh.
And I don't.
Brandon
think
Cobb.
Elliot has a question. Shane, who is
Brandon
the best
Cobb.
at Warzone on tour? Oh yeah, so Cobb apparently something I didn't know about him is a big gamer.
Yes.
Yeah, we game all the time, man.
Oh,
Yeah.
we game. You're a
Oh,
gamer
yeah.
too. Y'all
Yeah.
are big video gamers.
Well,
What's your
I like to
go-to?
drink some beers and push some buttons. Cobb is more focused.
What's your go-to? I mean, what do y'all play?
Call of Duty. If
What
Cobb,
is it?
if Cobb could make it
Call of what?
professional, Call of Duty.
Oh, Call of Duty.
Yeah, if Cobb could make it professionally gaming, he would do that over fishing.
Well, I mean, some kid won like $5 million doing it last year.
Right? Oh yeah, they make way more money than we do.
And
Way more
what
money.
trips me out is you go on Instagram or Facebook and you look up some of these gamers and they have like 800,000 followers.
Oh, yeah.
And they or 1 million followers and they post videos of them
Playing games,
playing games.
and that many people watch it.
It blows my mind.
Oh,
man.
yeah, me
it
too.
blows my mind.
Mhm.
Are you a gamer, Jeff?
I mean, I played.
Suddy's a gamer.
Suddy's
Jeff's
a
Jeff's
big
son
gamer.
Yeah.
is a gamer.
He's got like the whole shooting match set up, and he's.
What does he play? Call of Duty?
Call of Duty, Fortnite.
See, I don't know anything about any of those.
We play Fortnite. I don't play much anymore. I got like 65 solos. I'm not too
Great.
bad.
I don't. What does that mean? What's 65 solos?
Solo wins, bro.
Solo wins or solo kills?
So wins.
Probably
wins.
deaths.
What's Cobb
in the
got?
last? Oh God, who knows? Dude, he stays on that
Is he
thing. when we
good?
get
Like
on.
real good?
He's pretty good. Yeah.
Is he?
Yeah, he could potentially do it. He'd have to I don't know. He'd have to talk a lot more. He's kind of quiet like I
Does
am.
he stream?
No, he doesn't stream, and he'd have to open up and do that. But he could potentially do
I
something.
couldn't see
Cobb doing it?
stream.
No.
Yes. All right, so Tom Skidmore, be sure to go on to letstalkfish.com and pick you up a couple of the buffs. They're only $9.99 right now, so while supplies last, I don't know how many we got in stock, but I'm sure we'll get
I think
some
I
more.
got 300 of each in, and we sold probably 250 already since I posted it.
So you
Really?
better hurry.
Oh, wow. Rocking
they're
and
going
rolling
pretty
with the
fast,
buffs
so-
then. We still have some hats in stock. I know we need to restock on some hats, but we have the black and white, the gray front, white back. Still have a few T-shirts here and there, too. So letstalkfish.com to pick up any LTF apparel. Let's answer one more question before we jump into our trivia question. And let me just scroll down here. Alan Cook, we have not answered Alan tonight, wants to know what baits to you. Give him a couple baits. Lake Hartwell mid-October, Shane. Give him a couple choice baits that you'd have on your deck for Lake Hartwell in mid-October.
I would have probably 2. I would have a jig
Okay.
to skip under some shallow docks,
Yep.
and I would burn the bank with a buzzbait.
Okay, that's probably the way to win.
Yep.
And if you're not getting bit, then go find you some brush piles and pitch a drop shot around them, and you will get your line stretched 100%.
That and cane piles.
That and cane piles. Yep, cane piles are a big deal there, too. Those cane piles, you can go throw a big walking bait over top of them, catch a few fish. I'm sure there'll be plenty of schooling fish down there that time of year.
Yeah.
May not be the biggest fish in the lake, but you'll get your you'll get your string stretched again, and there'll be a lot of spotted bass. That lake is chock full of spotted bass, and will be. It's always fun to go to Hartwell because you can always catch a lot of fish. They might not be the biggest fish in the country, but they're fun. All right, let's jump into the trivia question, guys. The giveaway tonight: over $100 in tackle, the ultimate smallmouth starter kit, advanced.
That's
Pro kit,
pretty
whatever you
good
want to call it.
Starter kit.
Starter kit.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Thanks,
Pretty good starter
Jeff.
kit.
If you get
Pretty-
it around a smallmouth, you will catch
If
one.
you get around a smallmouth and you can't catch one on this kit that we're
He's
giving
not
away
gonna
tonight,
bite.
You need to stop fishing.
well, okay, Jeff said you need to stop fishing, but I would keep fishing. Maybe just go to a different area of the lake or something.
Maybe try something else. Jeff would
Um,
just quit. He'd going back to playing Fortnite and open a solo wins.
Exactly.
Joe Wilson said he heard there might be money in a hat to get Matt to grow a mullet like Fodder. Any truth to this? Hey, man, look, start throwing money in a hat. We'll see where it goes.
Everything's got a price.
Yeah, everything's got a price. I can promise you
How
that.
much money are we talking?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's what
Matt
Joe
Wallen.
said. That's what Joe said. All right, here we go. Trivia question time, guys. It's not going to take long for somebody to come up with this answer. I'm not going to tell you the answer. Jeff is in charge of the feed.
This is going to take about 2 seconds.
Yep.
I need to know.
It's probably already on there.
Somebody said Roland Martin.
I'm
Ding.
going to make it. I'm going to make it a little bit more complicated. So, during the New York Swing, this is the question, by the way. During the New York Swing of the 2 Bassmaster Elite tournaments on the St. Lawrence River and Lake Champlain,
You got a timer?
I need to
I
know.
want to see how fast this gets answered.
I need to know
We can start that.
who caught it. This all needs to be in your answer. It does not count. Who caught it? The biggest fish that was weighed in those 2 weeks, and what species was it? I need to know the name of the pro that caught it, the weight of the fish in pounds and ounces, and what species it was. All 3 of those have to be in your answer, or it does not count. And Jeff decides the winner. Okay. Well,
And species?
took
1 second.
I mean, the species.
One
yeah,
second.
no, got to have the species, or it doesn't count. I done told him
I
that.
mean, well, the answer. Yeah, okay.
Yep. So we have to have.
Oh, yeah.
See,
You
guys,
gotta change it. You
You're,
gotta change
you're
it.
typing so fast, you're not putting all the answers together.
Species of
The
bass.
species of fish.
David Prince.
David.
No.
Nope. Never mind. Never mind.
Luke Helms.
Luke Helms.
He
We got it.
don't.
All right. Luke Helms, you are the winner. 7 pound, 13 ounce smallmouth by Paul Mueller at the St. Lawrence River, guys. It actually came out of Ontario, if I'm not mistaken, didn't it, Shane?
Yes.
7 pounds, 13 ounces. The actual state record, I believe, or the lake record was only like 8-1.
Mm-hmm. He was close.
He almost smashed that record. But we have a winner. I saw you coming in, Derek Westfall and Andrew Alexander. But, guys, I specifically said the species
Smallmouth.
has to be in there. That's why I wanted a 3-part. Because it was an easy question to answer, I wanted to make it a
And it
little
was
bit.
already answered.
And it
like
was already
an hour
answered like
ago.
3
It
times
was.
in our show.
It was.
And aren't you proud of me for not addressing the fact that the trivia question was answered before the end of the show? I mean, dude, I was chomping at the bit to say something. Be like, oh, by the way. No. But, yeah, so Luke Helms,
Yep.
send us a message with your shipping information, and we will get this Smalley starter kit / advanced pro kit / everything you
I don't
need
think
to
we have to ship it to him.
smash. Oh, you know Luke?
Just a little bit.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know you knew Luke. All right. Well, then Shane will hand deliver.
He shouldn't have been able to guess, honestly.
Why?
I'm just kidding.
He doesn't have anything to do with like. Well, he didn't know what the trivia question
No,
was
he
going to
did
be. Okay, so he won fair and square.
He did.
We can't
He
take
did.
it away from him. Shane will hand deliver the package to you, Luke. How about that? Since he is a North Carolina resident and does not live far from Shane, apparently.
No.
So
Is
perfect.
he your neighbor or something?
He doesn't live with you, is he? Does he?
we
He's not
hang
your
out-
roommate, is he?
We hang out about 4 times a week, so
Gotcha.
yeah.
Good enough.
We just ate dinner last night before.
Good
Gotcha.
enough.
Reviewing questions.
Oh,
Yeah.
Possible
We're-
questions.
Jason Johnson.
We reviewed.
I hear you,
We
Jason.
studied.
He said it's a smallmouth, not a smallie. I got gypped. Ha! Well, smallie, smallmouth, small jaws, brown back,
We'd have taken
bronze
them all.
back.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we would accept it, any of them. We don't go with proper English around here, Jason. You should know that by watching this show.
Me and Matt.
Yeah, me and Matt. All right,
I got it in the show at least 3 times now. Proud of
guys.
myself.
They want to know if you got any flatworms in stock at your store.
I believe my dad put them on eBay and sold them.
He put them on eBay.
Or
and
put
sold
them,
all?
online.
I will
I
tell
should
you
say.
this, David, and I hate to say this live on the show because there's probably another pro out there that needs them pretty bad. But Tackle Warehouse
Yeah.
just restocked
There's going to be so many people get on there right
their
now.
flatworms today. Maybe TW will send me a commission check for that. No, they're going to sell out of them regardless of what I
Yeah.
say. But I will give you an inside tip there that they actually did restock on their flatworms today. But I bought quite a few and don't know how many they got. But you can jump on Tackle Warehouse and get you a bunch of them. Anyways, guys, thanks for joining us live tonight. Shane, thanks for coming
Yep,
again.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure having you on the show. And thanks for the giveaway products, too, man.
Oh, yeah.
I know the Berkeley stuff was a big player up north. It's always a big player up north. The Max Scent stuff has accounted for a lot of pounds of smallmouth bass in the last 2 years on any time we go up north.
Dad said we are out.
Oh, Troy LaHue actually was watching the show. Thanks,
Yeah.
Troy. He said they are completely out of the flatworms. So how about the next shipment? Do you have any idea? When you
No,
arrive
we're
in
going
the
to work
store?
on that when I talked to Brad today, so we'll
Okay.
work on that.
Cool. All right, perfect. Well, I hope that answered your question, David Wilder. And I wasn't trying to turn David away from their store to go to Tackle Warehouse, but if they're out,
Right.
Tackle Warehouse has them in stock. As of like 4 hours ago, they might actually be sold out now.
They probably are. Honestly.
But yeah, so all right, guys. So we're gonna sign out for the night, but we let's see next week. Plan to have
I'm at the beach next week.
Oh,
So
you are?
We're not. Well, if you want to have a show without me.
that's technologically impossible.
He doesn't know how to turn on his phone.
That's not gonna happen. Are you really gonna be at the beach next week?
Yep.
On Tuesday?
I mean, I'm going for the whole week.
Okay.
You should
Saved up for a
you
whole
should
year.
have the beach
We're
edition.
staying all.
You should bring Thrift, and maybe he'll bring a white marlin.
The beach edition, yeah.
Yeah, we got like.
So there will 100% not be a show next week because Jeff will be absent. Jeff will be taking his much-needed vacation. He's been at home working super hard. Oh, forgot to talk about a little something.
What you got?
I'm gonna turn it over to you. Why don't you tell them the significance? Oh, the Lunker text buff that's in the giveaway tonight, and the Lunker Hunt finesse baits.
Yeah. So
Tell them the significance of that.
These finesse baits were actually some of the Lunker Text deals. It's a little platform that I launched maybe
About a month and a half ago.
a little over a month ago. If everybody's wondering, that is me. And what we do is we send a text right to your phone, and you can just reply with the number of units you want, and the deal's done. You just go to lunkertext.com and sign up for an account, kind of like an Amazon Prime account. You put your address and your payment and all that on the front end to make it super convenient. And these are a few deals that we've done over the last week or two, I guess. The finesse crawls and the finesse swim baits. I think those 4 packs went for like $10.
Yeah, guys, we're hooked up with a bunch of different brands on that Lunker Text platform. Like Jeff said, it's real easy to sign up. Go to lunkertext.com and check it out, because what this is going to do, it takes you 2 minutes to sign up for it, okay? And you're going to get a text to your phone with a daily deal. It might be every other day. It might be 3 or 4 times a week. These deals are going to be bundles, and they're going to save you anywhere from 20 to 40% off retail.
More like 35 and up.
Okay,
we've
more
never
like
had a
35%
deal.
plus off of retail.
I think today was 40% on those on some pretty sweet Lucky Strike crankbaits. So.
Okay, so Lucky Strike. We've had Lucky
45%
Craft. We've
actually.
had Lunker Hunt. We've had Strike King. We've had Berkeley. We've had Storm. We've had Missile Baits. We've got about every major brand out there that we're hooked up with, and we're rolling these deals out. Saves you a ton of money. There you go, Mike Harris, Lunker Text rules. He said he's had several packages already.
Yep.
Super simple, super easy, and it's free to sign up. So just check that out. Take 2 seconds of your time. Go to lunkertext.com and check it out. I promise you.
And Derek Westfall's asking if you can buy previous Lunker Text offers. Unfortunately, every deal we've done has sold out in like 10 minutes or less. And it's not like we're putting like 5 things up. Like we put hundreds. We have hundreds in stock. But the list is pretty big, so if you want it, you got to kind of jump on it.
Yeah, they sell out super quick, and you know, we've had 1 or 2 guys get upset because they weren't able to capture that deal. The biggest thing is when you get that, if it's something you want, respond immediately with a quantity, because if you don't, these deals have been selling out super fast because they are really, really good deals, and they're saving you a lot of money. Like Jeff said, I was thinking 20 to 40%. He said most all the deals that we've sent out
Pretty
have
sure
been
today was 45% off.
45% off on the
good.
deal that was sent out today. And but there's deals running out every day now. Well, almost every day, not quite every day, but close.
Yeah,
but close. So get signed up for that, and you know you're not charged a thing unless you actually order something. So only respond if you want what's in that daily deal, and it'll be shipped directly to your doorstep. No questions asked, no issues. Super easy, super efficient, and a lot of cool stuff. Will save you a lot of money. All right, so Shane, thanks again.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
We're gonna go get some grub because none of us have eaten supper, guys. And we can't go fishing. We'll sit right here and talk fish, and we will see you, I guess, when we see you.
Couple weeks.
Couple weeks. Thanks for tuning in.
See you guys.
Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Fish. Visit our private Facebook group to continue the conversation, post your questions, and talk with other fellow anglers at facebook.com/groups/Let's Talk Fish. Follow us on Instagram at Let's Talk Fish Official, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more exclusive content. Join us again next episode for more actionable tips, tactics, and techniques directly from the pros. And remember, when we can't go fishing, we're going to sit right here and talk fish.